This morning, the president tweeted, quote, I don't believe the four congresswomen are capable of loving our country. They should apologize to America and Israel for the horrible, hateful things that they have said. They are destroying the Democrat Party, but are weak and insecure people who can never destroy our great nation. Does it behoove the president to continue to take on these four Democratic congresswomen in such a direct way, Kellyanne?
I've been taking on these congresswomen for a while on policy and will continue to do so. I was one of the earliest and loudest voices calling out that the four of them were the only four in the entire Congress to vote against any type of humanitarian aid for the border. That is a disgrace. That was a wrong vote. Every Democrat voted for one form or the other of the humanitarian aid package. 95 only did not vote for the $4.6 billion that is now working at the border. I was down there last week. Our CPB tells us that that is actually working. It's why we've been able to reduce the number of unaccompanied children. We've been able to have more space, many more needs met and accommodated for the unaccompanied children and for the families that are together. I witnessed it firsthand down at the Donna Center near McAllen, Texas. So I've been attacking them on policy and will continue to because nobody fact checks them. Why is the adoring media so afraid of these women who have made such strong anti-Semitic, anti-Israel comments, sponsored the anti-BDS, which really is another way of being anti-Semitic.
But the president is taking them directly on. And as Nancy Pelosi herself has even said, these are four members of Congress. And the president continues.
They took her on the week before. In last week's press conference, Ilhan Omar literally said, and let me just quote her because nobody fact checks these people. They are four Pinocchios walking around at all times. Quote, President Trump has pursued an agenda to allow millions of Americans to die from a lack of health care. What does that mean? What is she talking about? Not a single person has called her out. They're tougher on presidential aides and associates than they are on members of Congress who have sworn an oath to the Constitution. They want to fundamentally change the way this country is. Green New Deals, socialist economies, get rid of DHS, get rid of ICE. Don't even allow sanctuary cities to share information about criminals. This is not America. We cannot be an open borders, anti-law enforcement country that is built on the rule of law. So I will challenge anybody on policies. They denied humanitarian aid and they're trying to abolish our law enforcement.
Here we have Kellyanne Conway running cover for Trump as he continues to launch racist attacks at four non-white congresswomen. And right off the bat, she pivots to what she does best, distraction. Whereas the Fox anchor asked specifically if it behooves Trump to continue attacking the congresswoman with his racist dog whistles, that everyone agrees is racist except the white guy in the Oval Office and the people on his payroll, Kellyanne says instead that she's been taking on these women for a while on policy, which is good for her, but the issue isn't about policy or Kellyanne Conway, it's about Trump hurling racist attacks at non-white congresswomen, suggesting that they go back to their countries. And look, I get that the White House would love nothing more than to pretend this was all about policy, but Trump doubling and tripling down on his racist insults day after day after day makes it really difficult for any of us to buy their talking points. From there, Conway pivots to attacking AOC for voting against the humanitarian aid package for the border. But Ocasio-Cortez herself explained exactly why she and her three other colleagues cast their votes the way they did.
$3 billion of the $4.6 billion is going to housing for kids, for migrant kids. I think another 800,000 or so going to housing for other undocumented immigrants, adults. By opposing both bills, aren't you just ultimately depriving these kids of housing facilities that they need?
Well, when you look at how both of these bills happened, Jake, I think it's important that we have members of Congress that stand up and actually call truth to the situation. The House bill passed resoundingly. There were only 4 Democrats that defected, including myself, from that bill. And the reason I defected is because I needed to send a message to my constituents and my folks back home. And in fact, my constituents asked me to vote no on the bill. But if it ultimately came down to it, if we needed 100% every single Democrat to vote on this bill, we could do it with the amendments. But the problem right now, and the question at hand right now, is that Mitch McConnell sent us a bill and we're just putting a big check mark on it instead of even trying to negotiate. I have indicated that I'm willing to stay here. I don't need to go home on vacation. I don't need to go home to July 4th weekend. I will stay here all weekend to make sure that we get this thing done. And instead what Mitch McConnell is doing is that he's relying on the time pressure of recess to try to ram through a bill that is completely irresponsible to the American people and to those kids on the border.
AOC went on to explain that the House version had more accountability and humanitarian provisions, but the version that McConnell allowed to go through didn't have any of those provisions. So for Conway to claim then that AOC just outright rejected the bill as if, of all people, the Congresswoman didn't want aid to these people is beyond misleading, even by Kellyanne Conway's standards. The issue here is that, as AOC tweeted, there wasn't even an attempt at negotiations to make the Senate version of the bill more palatable before everyone signed on to it. So excuse her if she didn't want to give carte blanche to ICE, the same agency against which thousands of migrants have reported sexual abuse, the same agency that has repeatedly engaged in tactics to trick undocumented immigrants into arrest without the proper warrants or signatures. Her job isn't to rubber stamp whatever Mitch McConnell deems acceptable, it's to represent her district, which, by the way, is 50% Latino. But worst of all, Kellyanne has the audacity to suggest that Ilhan Omar is lying that Trump's agenda would allow 20 million Americans to go without health care. First of all, does Kellyanne know who she works for? Her boss has made over 10,000 false or misleading claims since taking office. Donald Trump wouldn't be able to tell the truth if Eric's life depended on it, mostly because Eric isn't Ivanka. But when you work for someone so frighteningly incapable of telling the truth, you might just want to sit out calling other people liars, especially when Omar was telling the truth. Trump has made repealing Obamacare or the ACA a cornerstone of his agenda, and Obamacare is the only reason that 20 million more Americans got health insurance immediately after the law was implemented. But Trump's Department of Justice has opted not to defend the law, which is now being defended in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, where 2 of the 3 judges on the panel are Republican appointees. So Kellyanne Conway can clutch her pearls and feign outrage at the very idea of this administration taking healthcare away from 20 million Americans, but it is quite literally in court fighting against the only reason that they currently have it. That said, it's no surprise that Kellyanne continues to spread lies unchecked, because between the White House and their propaganda arm at Fox News,
nobody fact checks these people.